Imagine waking up one morning and having to choose your entire life path based on a single decision made before you were even old enough to fully understand what you were signing up for. No college applications, no career counselors, no safety net, just a neighborhood, a desperate need for money, and an organization that has a very specific ladder for you to climb. Today, we are going inside one of the most ruthlessly structured criminal hierarchies on the planet and walking through exactly what daily life looks, feels, and smells like at every single rank inside a major drug cartel. From the kid running messages on the corner to the untouchable figure operating in the shadows at the very top, every level is a completely different world. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand something that most people never do. This is not chaos. This is a corporation. Let's start at the bottom because that is where almost everyone starts. The entry-level position in most cartels is called a falcon, which translates directly to falcon, and your job is exactly what it sounds like. You watch. That is it. You sit on a corner, a rooftop, or in a car, and you observe everything happening in your assigned territory. Who is coming in? Who is going out? Are there unfamiliar vehicles? Are there people who look like law enforcement? Your eyes are the cartel's early warning system. Now here is what nobody tells you about this job. You are often between 12 and 16 years old. Recruiters specifically target teenagers because minors in many countries face significantly lighter legal consequences if arrested. You are also paid almost nothing, usually the equivalent of a few dollars per day, sometimes in food or small gifts rather than cash. But here is the psychological hook that keeps kids in this position. You feel important. For the first time in many cases, you belong to something, and that belonging is worth more than money when you have grown up invisible. If you survive long enough and prove you can keep your mouth shut, you get promoted to what many cartels call a soldado, a soldier. Now things change dramatically. The watching is over. You are now expected to carry out direct orders, which can mean physically transporting drugs, guarding stash houses, collecting debts, or serving as muscle during confrontations with rival organizations. The money improves, but so does the danger. Soldiers are essentially the most expendable group in the entire organization. Leadership does not particularly care if a soldier gets arrested or killed because there are always more recruits waiting. The psychological weight of this position is something former members consistently describe as a strange mixture of adrenaline and dread. You feel powerful carrying a weapon and being feared in a community, but you are also deeply aware that your life is worth almost nothing to the people above you. Many soldiers cope through extreme loyalty to their immediate squad rather than the organization as a whole. You trust the guys beside you because the institution itself is indifferent to your survival. Move up one more rung and you reach the Plaza boss or cell leader level. This is where things get genuinely interesting from a structural standpoint. A Plaza boss controls a specific geographic territory, a city, a district, a stretch of highway that matters for transportation. You are no longer just following orders. You are managing people, solving logistical problems, paying off local officials, and hitting revenue targets set by leadership above you. Think of it like being a regional manager at a company, except your performance reviews can end with violence. Former cartel members who reached this level and later cooperated with authorities describe an almost surreal experience of feeling like a legitimate businessman. You have spreadsheets, essentially. You have employees who need managing. You have infrastructure concerns and supply chain headaches. The criminal element becomes almost normalized, and what occupies your mental energy is actually the management challenges. This is also the first level where corruption of law enforcement becomes your direct responsibility, rather than someone else's problem. You are personally building and maintaining those relationships, which means you become the bridge between the criminal world and the institutional world. Above the Plaza boss sits what many organizations call an enforcer lieutenant, or a cartel commander. These individuals do not manage territory so much as they manage violence strategically. Their job is to make sure that the cartel's dominance is not challenged, that internal discipline is maintained, and that rival organizations understand the consequences of crossing invisible lines. The lifestyle at this level is notoriously contradictory. On one hand, the material rewards are substantial. These individuals often live in genuine luxury, with properties, vehicles, and access to resources that would seem impossible for someone who started on a street corner. On the other hand, they live with a level of paranoia that former members describe as absolutely suffocating. Everyone around you is a potential informant. Rivals want you specifically dead because you are a high-value target, and the organization above you is watching closely for any sign that you might be skimming money or building independent power. Trust essentially becomes the most valuable and most scarce resource at this level. Former operatives who survived to tell their stories consistently describe the isolation as the most psychologically destructive element of the role. You cannot confide in anyone. Everything is a performance. Now we arrive at the financial layer, which is often overlooked in popular discussions about cartels, but which is arguably the most critical infrastructure in the entire organization. The money laundering specialists and financial operators at this level are frequently not from the same communities that produce soldiers and plaza bosses. They are sometimes recruited from legitimate industries, accounting, real estate, banking. Their job is to take enormous amounts of cash generated by drug sales and integrate it into the legitimate economy in ways that cannot be traced. This means constructing layers of shell companies, moving money across international borders through sophisticated mechanisms, and building relationships with legitimate businesses willing to participate in cleaning funds. The people who operate at this level often look nothing like the popular image of a cartel member. They dress in business attire, they attend meetings in office buildings, and their children go to private schools. The cognitive dissonance this creates is profound. They are participating in systems that generate enormous suffering while living lives that appear entirely respectable. Several individuals who later cooperated with law enforcement described a gradual erosion of moral awareness, where the distance between their actions and the consequences made it psychologically possible to continue for years. Then there is the intelligence and counterintelligence level, a tier that most people do not even know exists within major cartel structures. These are the individuals responsible for identifying informants, monitoring communications, understanding law enforcement strategies, and sometimes even placing assets inside government institutions. The sophistication of cartel intelligence operations has genuinely surprised researchers and law enforcement officials who have studied them closely. Some organizations have demonstrated the ability to intercept official communications, track the movements of investigators, and identify undercover operatives before they can gather significant information. Life at this level is perhaps the most secretive within the entire organization. Even other cartel members often do not know who these individuals are. They operate with extreme compartmentalization, meaning they know only what they need to know to do their specific job. And finally, we arrive at the top. The cartel leadership, the capos, the figures whose names eventually end up on international wanted lists and in headline news stories. The reality of life at this level is almost impossible to fully comprehend from the outside. The material wealth is extraordinary, but it exists within a prison of security concerns that shapes every single moment of daily life. Multiple residences, constant movement, layers of bodyguards, family members living under assumed identities. The decision-making at this level has macro consequences. Choices made by these individuals affect drug supply across entire continents, influence political outcomes in multiple countries, and determine whether thousands of people live or die in conflicts they orchestrate from a distance. Former associates of high-level cartel leaders who have spoken to researchers describe individuals who are simultaneously brilliant strategic thinkers and deeply unstable personalities. The combination of absolute power, constant threat, and complete insulation from normal human consequences creates a psychological profile that is genuinely unlike anything found in conventional life. Several leaders who were eventually captured described a peculiar sense of relief at being caught, as if the constant maintenance of their position had become more exhausting than the imprisonment itself. So what does walking through all of these levels actually teach us? It teaches us that this structure did not emerge from pure chaos or pure evil. It emerged from the same human drives that build any organization: the need for belonging, the desire for status, the search for economic opportunity, and the universal human capacity for rationalizing our own choices. Every single person at every single level of this hierarchy started somewhere ordinary. They made decisions within constraints that most people watching this video have never faced. That does not make the outcomes any less devastating. The communities destroyed by cartel violence, the lives consumed by addiction, the institutions corrupted beyond repair. These are real and catastrophic. But understanding how the machine actually works, level by level, human being by human being, is the only way to understand why it continues to exist and why dismantling it is so much more complicated than simply removing the people at the top. Cut off one head and the structure below it. That hungry, organized, deeply human structure simply grows another. If you want to understand the world, sometimes you have to look directly at the darkest parts of it without flinching. Thanks for watching.